Joseph Smith was called a prophet.
Hey, Joseph, I told my wife that you spoke with God and Jesus, and she didn't believe it.
Well, it's true, I did.
Where?
I was out in the woods, praying. I was asking God if I should be a Protestant or a Catholic or what, and suddenly God and Jesus appeared before me. And they said I should start my own church, because none of the others had it right. And that's exactly how it happened.
You see? You believe it now?
Well, yeah, sure. Why would he make that up?
Dum 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 dum.
So the 2024 US presidential election has just wrapped up, and it seems like everybody across America and the whole world are pretty unhappy about the outcome. Just a day after the election, there were reports of disturbing messages being sent to black people suggesting that they should go to the nearest plantation to pick cotton. It's so hard to believe that at this day and age we are seeing such blatant racism. And if you look at social media, you would notice a spike in searches like, how can I change my vote? Especially from people in red states. It seems like many young people are having second thoughts about their choices at the ballot box. Now, you might be wondering, what has all this got to do with the topic at hand? Fast forward to 5 days post-election and suddenly somebody is trending on Twitter. Who, you may ask? Well, our very own Mormon queen, Nara Smith. She became the center of attention with a flurry of comments and accusations claiming that she voted for Donald Trump. One TikTok video that caught my eye delved into how Mormonism is rooted in racism, and trust me, this is something that is very, very important and I'm going to speak about later on in this video. Another video that I watched, this person was basically speaking about how she cannot understand how black people are Mormon, and this is not something that's coming from anywhere. There is a whole context to this. Some people over the years, they've come out to point how the Mormon Church has pushed a trad wife agenda on social media, which raises even more questions about gender roles and representation within the faith. By the way, I have a video on that topic, so you can check that out after this one. Another thing, somebody actually saw Lucky Blue Smith on public transport, so let's talk about my personal research and experience. Diving into this research on Mormonism was quite the adventure. I came across some articles that were straightforward and didn't hold back about criticizing the Mormon faith. And there were others that painted a more positive picture on the whole faith and the church. And to me, it was more like sugarcoating. Then of course, I saw some articles that were like 50-50. For instance, they said things like, we no longer believe that black people are bad luck. Sure, they used to think that way, but come on, racism isn't just a relic from the past. And if you don't get it, I'm being very, very sarcastic. Like saying, we openly admit that God don't like black people, then we'll get cancelled. Maybe our founder didn't just hear God well. But if your founder didn't just hear God well, what else didn't he hear well? Polygamy, misogyny, and oh, I forgot, not marrying outside your faith. We have a lot to discuss today, so today we're diving into the topic of Mormonism. Is it a cult, a religion, or another form of Christian doctrine? Some people argue that religion have cult-like elements, but I'm very, very interested to hear your thoughts on this. That being said, let me introduce myself. Hi guys, my name is Joe, and on this channel I just speak about anything I want to speak about, whether they're trendy or not. If video essays are your cup of tea, deep dives, documentary, if any of that are your cup of tea, then this is the channel for you. Kindly consider subscribing, liking, sharing this video. It will really, really mean the world to me. And that being said, let's get into the word for today. So the word for today is daily reminder. In the garden of adversity, find strength in the resilience of your spirit. Daily reminder, in the garden of adversity, find strength in the resilience of your spirit. And this is from my journal, the Manifest Your Vision journal. It's a complete guide to journaling. It has original shadow work prompt, brain dump, affirmations, guided dream prompts, weekly check-ins. It has literally everything. So if you want to purchase it, the link is in my description box. Just use my link to purchase your products, and it will in turn help me and help this channel. I always forget this one. Please send your pet videos to the email down in my description box. if you're comfortable with that. And now let's get straight into this video. Before we get started, let me share a little bit about my background. I grew up in a Christian family. I sang in the choir. I was part of the evangelism team in university. You know, all those pretty standard stuff, yada yada yada. But as I grew older and I started to think for myself and question a lot of things. To be fair, I have been questioning a lot of things since I was a child. And back then, when you asked questions like, where did God come from? My parents or any elderly person would be like, if you continue to think of things like that, you would literally run mad. So I decided to be on this self-discovery personal journey, and there were a lot of things that I started to question and my perspective began to change. I read a book called Under the Udala Tree, and it just made me question a lot of things in the Bible that I may have taken for granted or I may have breezed in it, even when it's being discussed in places like church or school or whatever. Issues like essay, misogyny, child marriage, they just seem to be normalized in ways that really troubled me when I went back to reread those scriptures of the Bible. For instance, there is a story about Lot offering his virgin daughters to a crowd of strangers to be armed just to protect visitors that came into his house literally 10 minutes ago. And it's just so hard for me to wrap my head around that, putting the lives of strangers over that of your own children's safety. It really makes you think, like, is this really real? To be clear, I haven't turned away from the Bible. In fact, I love the book of Psalms. I read the book of Psalms almost every night. I decided to take a different route when it came to this whole religion thing. First of all, I'm not religious in the traditional sense. I don't follow any specific religion or attend religious services regularly. My spiritual beliefs are more personal and don't really fit into any of this religious category. I identify as a spiritual person who believes in God. Though my understanding of Him may differ from traditional religious views, for me, God represents a loving and guiding presence in the universe, one that is deeply intertwined with the beauty and the complexity of life. While I don't subscribe to any specific organized religion, I find inspiration in various spiritual teachings and practices that just helps me connect with the divine presence. My spirituality is rooted in personal experiences, reflection, and sense of wonder about the world around me. I believe in the power of prayer, in the power of meditation as ways to deepen my relationship with God and cultivate inner peace. Ultimately, my journey is about seeking truth, fostering compassion, and just embracing the mystery of faith as I just navigate this path I'm on in life. And that being said, I'm just going to try my very best not to ruffle any feather in this video. But if speaking the truth will hurt you and also saying a couple of allegedlys, then oh well, that's not a me problem. So now let's talk about a boy named Lucky Blue Smith. Oh my bad, Joseph Smith Jr. Joseph Smith Jr. was born on December 23, 1805 in Sharon, Vermont. He was the fifth out of 11 children in a farming family that often struggled financially. His parents, Joseph Sr. and Lucy Mack Smith, they moved frequently in search for better opportunities. Growing up, Joseph faced a lot of challenges. The family dealt with financial hardships, especially after his father's ginseng business failed. Due to his father's business failure, this forced them into moving to different farmlands and they became tenant farming. So what is tenant farming? It happens even till now, but I think now it's more controlled. So back in the day when people were poor and didn't have anything to do, or they didn't have work and they didn't have where to stay, they would go on farms to help farmers, and in return the farmer would give them their place to stay or give them a place to stay on the farm. So that's literally what tenant farming is, and this is what his parents and him they were doing. And there were 11 siblings. Over the years, they moved several times across New England just trying to find a more stable life. And if you remember a video I posted like 2 videos or 3 videos ago where I spoke about the monetization of poverty, and then I brought about the Jenkins family, how they don't have money, they don't have this or that, but they are still looking to have more children. This is my problem. I would forever stand against bringing children into this world purposely when you cannot even fend for yourself. I don't know what the pride is to bringing children when you can't fend for yourself, you don't have money to fend for yourself, but you're purposely bringing children, so much children into the world when you know you can't fend for yourself. And some people were trying to argue with me in the comment section. To me personally, I feel like that is greed. That is very selfish, because these are children. Children need more resources than an actual adult. I can understand having 1 or 2 children, but like 11 children when you don't even have a place to stay, I don't understand that. So when Joseph was around 7 years old, he was living in Lebanon, New Hampshire. He fell seriously ill. Some sources said he had typhoid fever, or some sources just said that he was just sick. And this illness led to a painful bone infection in his leg that nearly resulted in his leg being amputated. Thanks to skilled doctors and a risky surgical procedure, they were able to save his leg. Joseph, he showed incredible courage, because during this time they offered him numbing medication. He was 7 years, and they offered him alcohol because I guess during those times alcohol was aesthetic. The doctors, they offered him alcohol, and he told his dad he didn't want to have alcohol. He refused to have alcohol. Instead, he told his dad to stay by him. He's going to hold his dad, and he's going to go through the pain without being numbed. So that's what he did, and this just showed how courageous he is. Apparently, Joseph Smith himself had not come out to say this, but when he died, it was his mom that came out to recount this experience or this encounter that happened. Joseph's formal education was quite limited. Like many kids from farming families back then, he spent most of his time on the farm, just helping in the farm and doing odd jobs. He did attend school for a short period of time before he was homeschooled by his mom. However, his mom noted that even though he went to school or he was schooled, he just did not like school like his siblings, like he was not interested in books. Despite this lack of formal schooling, Joseph, he had this vivid imagination. He loved to tell stories. He would captivate his family with legends about ancient Native American life, showcasing his creative flair from a very, very early age. Before I go into this, just hold on to this thought of a child having this vivid imagination, able to tell stories. Just hold on to that. Searching this case, I was like, that would be my very first red flag. But then again, I do not dispute people who have visions or who say they have visions from God. I don't dispute that, because there are people who can actually see, are gifted with that. In 1816, when Joseph was about 10 years old, his family, they settled in Palmyra, New York, and they continued their farming life there. They often read the Bible together as a family, which likely just sparked Joseph's later interest in religion. As a child and teenager, Joseph was just known for being quiet and good-natured. His family just had a unique approach to religion. So even though his family, they read the Bible and did all this gathering, they were not particularly religious. Both his parents, they had experienced visions, and they were very, very much more interested in folk magic and new spiritual trends or ideals, while they kind of still remained skeptical about organized religion. It wasn't until he reached his mid-teens that Joseph just developed a deeper interest in spirituality, and this was influenced by the religious revivals that happened around him during the Second Great Awakening. And the Second Great Awakening around this time was a time of intense religious fervor, and this would in turn shape Joseph Smith's future experiences and also lead to the founding of his own church. The religious atmosphere of Joseph Smith's youth just played a significant role in shaping his spiritual journey. Growing up during this period of revivalism and with his family's complex relationship with faith, it just sets the stage for his own quest for understanding and belief. At the age of 14 in 1820, Joseph Smith claimed to have had like a very life-changing vision where he saw God the Father and Jesus Christ.
I kneeled down and began to offer up the desires of my heart.
So Joseph Smith is in this grove, and he's praying. And after a run-in with the devil,
exerting all my strength to call upon God,
he sees a pillar of light, brighter than the sun, directly over his head. And within that light, he sees two people whose brightness defy all description. He finds out that it's God the Father and his son, Jesus Christ.
This claim raises eyebrows, especially to me, because like I said, I was an evangelist at some point in my life, and the Bible suggests that no one can truly see God. For instance, Moses, he was begging to see God, and God said, nobody has ever seen me and live. So God was like, because I love you and I want to show you that I'm real, you're going to see my back. And this was when God showed Moses his back. So according to the Bible, Moses saw the back of God, and this is in Exodus 32:20. God told Moses, and I read, "You cannot see my face, for no man shall see me and live." Notice the Bible seems to contradict itself, because was it Jacob? I can't remember, but I think it's Jacob that came out and said, "For I've seen the Lord face to face and his glory, and I have lived." So then again, one thing I've noticed, the Bible tends to contradict itself. This vision of him seeing God and Jesus Christ was known as the first vision, and it became a fundamental event for the Mormon theology. Joseph Smith reported that he was told not to join any other religion because every other religion on the earth around that time, they were not doing what God wanted them to do. So God had chosen Joseph Smith, and God was going to set him on a path to create a new religious movement that would only please God.
And Jesus goes on to tell him that none of the churches that he's been investigating are true, and that instead Joseph is being called to do the work of God, to restore the real true church that had been lost from the earth, to restore this church to prepare the world for the second coming of Jesus and the millennium that he will usher in. This event is referred to as the first vision, and it is the founding story of the LDS Church, the Mormon Church, like most people know it. As a member of the church, from a very young age, you learn this story. You sing about it, you talk about it, you study it, and every few years, the church comes out with a new video version representing the first vision.
So over the following years, he claimed to have more divine encounter and guidance. In 1827, he said that he received golden plates from an angel named Moroni, which he translated into English, resulting in the Book of Mormon as we know today.
An angel appears to him. The angel is named Moroni. By the way, if you ever see a Mormon temple, big white building, you will see a depiction of the angel Moroni on the top of that temple with a trumpet pointing east. But for now, he's an angel in Joseph Smith's room, telling young Joseph that yes, the second coming of Christ is right around the corner, and that yes, just like God and Jesus told him a few years ago, he has been called to prepare the world for the second coming. And if that wasn't enough, Moroni tells him that there is a book that is written on golden plates that is buried in a hill near Joseph's house. The book is an important record of a group of Jews who left Jerusalem in 600 BC and came to the Americas. Anyway, I'll explain that in just a second. And don't worry, says Moroni, along with the plates, there's the gear you need to translate these plates into English. Joseph just needs to get a bit older and he'll be ready to translate the plates. At this point, Joseph tells his family what's been happening, and they believe him. So by the time he's 21, he's instructed to go to the hill Cumorah near his house and get the plates. Okay, so now Joseph Smith, in his 20s, he's this uneducated, unreligious treasure hunter, and he starts to focus in on something totally new.
And this experience is somewhat analogous to Moses receiving the 10 commandments on stone tablets from God on Mount Sinai. While Moses was giving commandments that served as moral guidelines for Israelites, Joseph actually claimed to have been shown golden plates that became central to the teaching of the LDS Church. So the LDS Church, in case you don't know, is Mormon Church. So I'm going to interchange Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormon Church, LDS. I'll be interchanging all of them. So the Book of Mormon was published in 1830 and it became a key scripture for this new faith. On April 6, 1830, when Joseph was just 24 years old, he officially organized the Church of Christ, which was later renamed to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the first place that this held, or the first gathering, was in Fayette in New York. This marks the formal beginning of the Mormon faith. Interestingly, Joseph's limited formal education just played a paradoxical role in his rise as a religious leader. And yes, I intentionally use the word paradoxical. He heavily relied on what he described as divine revelations to shape his teaching and his church doctrine. But let's not forget that his childhood talent of storytelling, of being this person who had a very vivid imagination, also helped him to communicate his religious experiences effectively to his followers. So now let's talk about the birth of the Mormon Church. It all started in 1820 in Western New York, where a teenage Joseph Smith claimed to have experienced a series of remarkable visions. In this vision, he said that God and Jesus Christ appeared to him, telling him that all the existing Christian churches had strayed from the true teachings of God. They informed him that he was the chosen one to restore the true Christian church, marking the start of the Latter-day Saints movement. Then, in 1827, Joseph reported another heavenly visitation from an angel named Moroni. While researching this case, I actually thought it was Moroni until there's this guy. I wish I had listened to him prior to diving into this. But yesterday, when I was coming back from the coffee shop, I had been wrapped up my script and everything, and for some reason YouTube just suggested his account to me on YouTube. His name is Johnny Harris, and he is an ex-Mormon person, and I learned a lot from him. But honestly, like, my brain is already too frazzled to kind of update my script and everything. But like, I would advise you guys to check him out after this. He went into details. Like, his level of research on his video is so outstanding. I was like literally having chills. But please go to his video after you've watched mine, please. Thank you, and let's continue. So basically, in 1827, Joseph reported another heavenly visitation from an angel named Moroni, and this angel revealed the location of the buried golden plate in Ineba Hill. According to Joseph, these plates, they contain the writings from ancient prophets who had lived in the Americas. I think then it was called the Americas. There are so many things and so many words that, okay, not so many, just two. I'm going to talk about the second one, but like, yeah, so I think then it was called the Americas before it was changed to America. But anyways, by 1830, he had translated these writings into what we know today as the Book of Mormon. I'm not gonna lie, the story behind him translating this just seems so unreal. When he saw this golden plate, he went into a room, him alone, and he was there like for so many days looking at these scripts. And at first it was written in Egyptian language or Egyptian writing, because obviously he is American and he can only speak English. So after like looking at it for a very long time, there was a light that shone into it, and then when this light shone, that was when it was translated to English.
Plates that no one else is allowed to see. He would sit on one side of a curtain so that no one else could see. And he says he looked through these stones at the Egyptian engravings on these golden plates, and they would turn into English. And then he would dictate them out loud to a scribe, sometimes his wife or other early believers who were supporting him. And that scribe would write them down. At other points, Joseph didn't even need the plates to translate. He could hide them somewhere else. And he would use his personal seer stone, the one that he used back when he was just a treasure hunter before he says he was called as a prophet. This little chocolate-colored egg-shaped stone. He would put it into a hat, and then he would bury his face in the hat. And he said that the stone would light up with the words that he was supposed to dictate to his scribe. His scribe would write it down, and the Book of Mormon was being written.
The experience that he spoke about, I find it somewhat similar to Moses receiving the 10 commandments on stone tablets from God on Mount Sinai. So while Moses received divine commandments that served as moral guidelines for the Israelites, Joseph claimed to have been shown golden plate by Angel Moroni, which became fundamental to the teaching of the LDS Church. The Book of Mormon, it was published in 1830 and it quickly became a central text for this new faith.
Joseph says that he gives the plates back to Moroni and then takes the manuscript of the pages to a printer. That's how we have the Book of Mormon. This is my Book of Mormon. Maps. My early exposure to maps.
And that's how the Book of Mormon was written. Dum 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 dum. Dum da dum 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 da dum 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 dum.
On April 6, 1830, at just 24 years old, Joseph officially organized the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Fayette, New York. And this church just started with 6 members. The early years of this church, they were filled with challenges, including opposition and persecution from people who were not Mormons, even from the government. And this hostility just forced Joseph and his followers to relocate several times. First, they went to New York. From New York, they went to Ohio. From Ohio, they went to Missouri, which they almost stayed until the government found out that he was trying to step out of his boundaries. He was trying to pull some strings, and then they sent them away, and finally they settled in Illinois. And in Illinois, Joseph established the city of Nauvoo, where the Mormon community thrived, but they still had tensions with non-Mormons, and these tensions just escalated. Tragically, in 1844, there was an increasing conflict, and this led to Joseph Smith's death. He was actually killed by a mob, and this marked a very pivotal moment in the Mormon history. We'll get into this later on in this video. So first of all, what are the similarities and the differences between the Bible and Mormon? Both are considered holy books by Mormons. Both, they talk about Jesus Christ and his teaching. They contain stories about prophets and their messages from God, or to give advice on how to live a good life. Mormons, they use both books in their church and for their personal study. Now let's talk about the differences. The Bible was written by many people over thousands of years. Scripts, what we see today as like one combined book called the Bible, they were often kept in synagogue and people came and put it together. Let me tell you, I will be the first person to tell you that the Bible is not complete. What you have in your hand, on your phone, whatever, is not complete. Let's go back to the days of slave trade. Slaves had their own Bible, and this was when other texts were added so that they would think what they were doing for their slave masters was what was good. There are things from the Bible that have been taken out. Even homosexuality was initially not in the Bible. I could come and tell you how the word homosexuality was put in the Bible. And let me tell you something, in case you do not know, it was miscommunication. It was a translation issue. The Book of Mormon, on the other hand, was supposedly translated by Joseph Smith in the 1800s. Now let's talk about the time period. The Bible covers from the beginning of time in the world to around 100 AD. 100 AD is Annos Domini, which means in the year of the Lord, while BC is before the birth of Christ. While when it comes to the Book of Mormon, the Book of Mormon mainly covers from 600 BC to 400 AD. And another thing we'll talk about when it comes to the differences between the Book of Mormon and the Bible is the location. The Bible stories just happen mostly in the Middle East. But when it comes to the Book of Mormon, stories are set only in the Americas. Bible, there are lots of archaeological evidences for Bible stories. Moses on the Book of Mount Sinai, the parting of the Red Sea. But when it comes to the Book of Mormon, there are little to no archaeological evidence. Most Christians, they accept the Bible, but only Mormons and a few related groups only accept the Book of Mormon. And when it comes to language, the Bible has been written in several languages like ancient Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, while the Book of Mormon has only been written in English. And then again, it's in a style that is similar to King James Version. Another thing is the unique ideas. So the Book of Mormon has teachings that aren't in the Bible, and the Bible became accepted as scripture over centuries, but the Book of Mormon was just quickly accepted by Mormons soon after it was published. Like, soon after it was published, no question asked. Maybe I'm ruffling some feathers. You all should bear with me. My research was literally something that made me like so surprised. So you don't expect me to just in a whim just accept it. Still like mesmerized, like even still talking about it, like watching videos. Like today I didn't watch any video because I've had like lots of Mormon teachings already, history, and I am still very, very shocked. So I don't think it's something you expect me to just like sit down and understand, especially if in this day and age, if that makes sense. And one thing I've noticed that back then in the days of, even the days of Jesus Christ, the olden days, it was very, very easy to manipulate people to join your type of religion, whatever religion. It was very easy for you to bring the crowd to join your religion, because now if people try to do it, it would be like, oh, that's a cult, because now we have social media and this and that. Then it was very, very easy for you to be like, God appeared to me, and just give them one story, and you can already form a new religious movement. If you're like, oh, this girl is being biased, I'm not being biased, I'm just shocked. And some of the things to me, like, I am still trying to like understand and just place myself in there and be like, in this day and age, if someone came up to me with all these stories, how would I react? Does that make sense? But let's continue. 4 main gospels in the Bible are named after evangelists like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, while the Book of Mormon has the Book of Jacob, the Book of Omni, and the Book of Alma. And these were all named after Israelites who came to America around 1000 BC. That's 1000 before the birth of Christ. However, archaeologists have found no evidence of this civilization. They found no evidence of Israelites coming to America. I don't even think America existed around that time.
Okay, so let's be clear on what Joseph Smith said the Book of Mormon is. It's not what a lot of people say, which is like the Mormon Bible. The book tells the story of a group of Jews in Jerusalem in around 600 BC. They're told to leave the city before it gets destroyed. So they leave the city, they walk in the desert for a while, probably to like Oman is what a lot of Mormons think, and then they build a boat and travel across the ocean for a very long time until they reach the Americas, somewhere in like North, Central, or South America. The foundation of the story is about these brothers of the original family who like eventually split off, and they like hate each other, and they grow up into these two different civilizations, the Nephites and the Lamanites, who are always fighting with each other, and there's all these prophets and there's all this drama that happens. And the introduction to my Book of Mormon says the Lamanites, these people who came over from Jerusalem, are, quote, the principal ancestors of the American Indians. And a few years ago, they did change that to the Lamanites being among the ancestors of the American Indians. But yeah, the point is that the Book of Mormon is a history of these Jews turned indigenous Americans.
During those times, the location where the Bible centered mainly about was around the Middle East, and also some parts of Africa like Egypt and the rest, Jordan, Israel, although where Israel is very debatable because the real Israel is in Africa according to historians. According to historians, black people are the first people that came into this world, but obviously every black woman has something called the Eve gene where you can give birth to another race. So literally there's just a whole layer to this if you start to unpack it. That's why to me I'm still really, really shocked, because I'm like, yeah, so like, just don't blame me. Let's talk about the main beliefs of the Mormon Church, and then we'll go into the controversial beliefs of the Mormon Church. Mormonism, first of all, is a very distinctive religious movement that began in the 19th century. Obviously, we spoke about how it was founded by Joseph Smith in 1830, and since then it has grown into a global faith with millions and millions of followers. At its core, Mormonism blends some elements of Christian theology, American frontier ideals, and also it has a unique doctrine that just sets it aside from mainstream Christianity. Central belief in Mormonism is the idea of a restored faith or restored gospel. And Mormons, they assert that through Joseph Smith, God restored the true Christian church, which they believe had fallen in the apostasy after the original apostles passed away. I want you to hold that thought, especially those two words, restored gospel, because it's going to come up later on in this video. This restoration included the return of the prophetic authority and additional scriptures, most notably the Book of Mormon. Mormons, they've not really come out to dispute the Bible. Instead, they see the Book of Mormon as a text that is a companion to the Bible. And they said that the Book of Mormon is a companion to the Bible that chronicles God's dealing and the ancient civilization in the Americas, and it contains the fullness of Christ's teachings. The Mormons' understanding of God differs significantly from traditional Christian belief. While the Christians believe in God the Father, God the Son, that's Jesus Christ, and God the Holy Spirit, Mormons, they reject the concept of the Trinity. So in case you're not Christian, the Christian believe that God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, they are three in one and they are the Holy Trinity. But the Mormons, they do not believe in this. Instead, they see this as three separate entities being united in purpose, with God the Father and Jesus Christ having physical glorified bodies. Mormons believe that God has a wife. They literally believe that God is married. This belief, even though the Bible has come out to say that God is anything you want him to be, like God is all in all, this belief in embodied deities also shapes their view of human potential. Mormons, they believe that people can progress to become like God, and this is a concept known as eternal progression. I don't know if you guys understand. So while they do not believe in the Trinity, they believe that God and Jesus Christ, they have human bodies. They believe that God is already married. God has a wife in heaven. And then they're like, human beings can also progress to be like God. So they can progress to be like God, and they call this eternal progression. The plan of salvation is another key doctrine in Mormonism. And here they outline life's purpose and the humanity destiny, like the destiny of humans. And according to this belief, people existed as spirit children of God before coming to earth to gain physical bodies and also face challenges. They believe that people will progress through various stages after death, and this plan just emphasizes the importance of free will, personal responsibility, and the possibility of eternal families.
He says he's getting almost daily communication from Jesus, and he starts to develop a theology that is unlike anything else on offer. Turns out that God is actually a man with a body of flesh and bone, and he has a wife. God lives near a star that's far away, and we, all of us here on Earth, are these little eternal balls of light called intelligences. But our heavenly parents have birthed us into spiritual children, and then they sent us down onto this earth to get a physical body, to get married, to create an earthly family, to learn and to grow, so that someday we can return to live with God with our families. And then we can become like God with our spouses. We can create our own spiritual families in some other part of the universe. But in order to do that, we have to pass some tests here on Earth. We have to complete certain rituals and demonstrate obedience to Him. And in order to make this all happen, He needs to set up a church. That church needs to have proper authority. And there would need to be a savior that would come down to account for all of our sins so that we can be pure to enter the kingdom of God again. Luckily, one of our spiritual brothers, named Jehovah, later called Jesus, volunteered to be this savior.
When it comes to family, family is at the heart of the Mormon Church, is part of their core beliefs and practices. And sometimes that's why, if you notice, like some Mormons, they give birth to like so many children. So Mormons, they hold that sacred ordinances performed in temples can seal family relationships for eternity. This idea of eternal families just strongly motivates their family values and also drives their emphasis on genealogy and temple work for deceased ancestors. And we're going to expand more on that because there's some things that the Mormon Church do, and honestly there's a part that I'm going to speak about that I literally don't understand. So if you are an ex-Mormon or you're a current Mormon, I would want you guys to explain it for me, and when I reach that part, I'm going to let you guys know what that is. Mormonism, they place a very strong emphasis on personal revelation and divine guidance. They believe that God continues to communicate with prophets today just as he did in biblical times. And this is something that I'm not even going to dispute. Like, I feel like my mom used to tell me, she's told me, like, if your conscience is speaking to you, if you hear like a little voice, that's the Holy Spirit that's speaking to you. And I'm someone who is a very intuitive person. I don't know if I should call it premonitions. I don't know if it's premonitions, but like, when I think about something, most of the time they come to pass. And it's not something that I like. I hate it so much. Like, people around me, like, they know. Like, when I think about something, they would literally come to pass. And I hate it so much because they make me so, I won't say scared, but I have to like be constantly controlling my thoughts. So if a bad thing comes into my head, I have to keep on saying, I reject it, I reject it, I reject it. Like, it's very, very draining. I'm so glad my dreams don't really come to pass, because I've been having some weird dreams, but like, my friend, like, her dreams, they come to pass. Like, if she dreams that someone has died, the person will literally die. Like, literally. And me, my own is like my thoughts. Like, the one I can think of from the top of my head was like, when I moved here newly, I'd asked my housemate, because like something told me like Jehovah's Witness were going to come to the door, and I asked her, I was like, has Jehovah's Witness ever come to this house before? And she was like, who is that? And I was like, they an evangelist team, they are from a Christian faith, they go from house to house to preach the gospel. And mind you, she's been here since she was 8 years. And she was like, no, I don't know them, never heard of them or whatever. I'm like, they literally stand on the street, they try to stop each other, like, oh, they've never stopped me, I just see people stand on the street, but like, I just don't know what it's for. Like, she was very confused. I was like, oh, that's weird, because for some reason I thought they've come here, and I feel like, I don't know. And she was like, oh, I don't think they'll ever come, because they've never ever come to this house before. Tell me why the next day they came. Literally, the next day they knocked on the door, and she was the one that opened the door. Some people will be like, you're not being spoken to anyone. It could be your intuition. Some people that are not even religious, they are like seers. They can see things. They were born with that gift. Honestly, it depends on you, but personally, I believe that God speaks to people. The Holy Spirit speaks to people. They guide you or whatever. Like, I believe that. And the president of the LDS Church, he's regarded as a prophet who can receive revelations for the entire church. Even Christians, they also have this belief that the pastor can see revelations for the entire church and things like that. And honestly, in case you don't know, when I was 14, I lost my biological mom. My dad remarried after, but when I was 14, I lost my biological mom. And prior to when she died, my biological mom, she's someone, even though we're not really that close, my parents, they were married till she died, whatever, but like, I've always been a daddy's girl. She was someone who was very religious, very Christian. She always wanted to know what next about Christianity, what next about the church. We even had like a Mormon family. We used to go to the house every Sunday. Then my brothers and my mom, my dad didn't come, bake us banana bread and everything. I think it's like, I didn't even know that the church was, because back at home we had the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They would show us their children. I think then they had like 6 children and so many grandchildren. They had like elderly children. They would show us their children, the family photos and everything. And they stayed there. I think they were missionaries. I would think they are missionaries, because now I think about it, I think they were missionaries, because we used to go to the house almost every Sunday till they actually went back to America. So they were from America. So we got there every Sunday. They would treat us nice. They would treat us so well. Apart from that, like my mom, we used to, like, when my mom is fasting, she used to fast a lot. She'll make us fast with her, and I didn't like it sometimes, like, because we want to eat, but obviously my mom was like, we are fasting today. So like, I remember she used to like go to pastors to pray and everything and all. And then I remember the night she died, like, it was chaos in the house and everything. And this pastor was known to see visions, because then during that time we used to fast, we used to go to his church and everything, and he'll be seeing all these visions. He'll be seeing vision, and everybody will be taking it. Will be like, yes, pastor, this or that. The night my mom died and everything, for someone who sees vision, I put like so much faith in him. I feel like I am someone who hardly trusts people like that. Like, I don't know, I'm a Capricorn. I don't know if it's a Capricorn thing or childhood trauma. I would say childhood trauma, but like, I'm someone who rarely trusts people. I don't really trust people like that because of my own personal experience. Like, I don't really trust people like that, but like that night that my mom was, very, very sick, and it just came from nowhere. And I remember calling this guy on my mom's phone, this pastor, and I told him what happened, and he was like, don't worry, she's going to be fine. Don't worry, she's going to be fine. She's going to be fine. It's going to be good news. And I remember then my brothers, they were very, very worried. They're like, what if this happen? I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. This pastor said that it's going to be fine. Remember, he sees prophets, he sees prophecies, God speaks to him directly. Mom is going to be fine. And like, I put that faith so much that night I went to sleep. My cousins came to the house to pick up some things to take to the hospital. I had that faith. Until the next day, I saw some people coming to the house, tripping in. And then my dad told me that my mom had died. Like, literally, I just felt the worst disappointment I'd ever felt in my life at that time. Because I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was very, very shocked. While I understand him saying prophecies and all these things and being the ear of God's mouth, the downside of what I got from this is that it could create disappointment. I was 14 years and my mom died. Being 14 and being in that position, I had never felt disappointment like that. Like, I don't know if you guys can see where I'm coming from. Again, I believe God speaks to people, but then again, is it God speaking to people, or is it just your intuition? Are you just blessed with it, or do you just say that? Because then again, we have seen videos of people prophesying wrongly. The lifestyle of the Mormon Church, or the lifestyle of Mormons in general, they are characterized by a commitment to moral living and service. The word of wisdom is a health code that is revealed, or that was revealed to Joseph Smith. So this health code, known as the word of wisdom, is that Mormons, they should not have alcohol. So they prohibit alcohol, tobacco. I can understand prohibiting alcohol and tobacco, but I cannot understand prohibiting coffee and tea. Coffee and tea. So you can have some good English breakfast tea, some good tea, green tea that is so beneficial for your body. You can have coffee. Like, okay, maybe I can understand coffee, but tea? Mormons, they are encouraged to live honestly, to practice chastity, and to serve others, which I think every religion does that. Missionary work is also a very significant part of their culture. Many young men and women, they dedicate up to 2 years of their lives just going around the world and just prophesying and trying to convert people to their religion, just doing missionary work. And temple worship also plays a very essential role in Mormons' religious life. The temples, they are viewed as a sacred space where Mormons, they perform vital rituals or ordinances, but I would call them rituals because we are going to speak about this later on. And these rituals are essential, according to them, for salvation and exaltation. And this include eternal marriage sealings, and also they have this proxy baptism for those who have died. That is the part I told you guys I don't understand. What do you mean you have proxy baptism for those who have died? Like, they conduct baptism for the dead. And they have this in the temple. I've wrapped my head around this, and the articles that I have seen, they've not really explained it to me. So can someone please explain proxy baptism for dead people? And can someone explain eternal marriage sealings? Because my understanding, I don't think is like a normal wedding ceremony. Why do I feel like a lot goes on behind the scene, especially when it comes to the temple? So the temple is not like a normal Mormon church that you see. That's not a temple. They have, I think, around 29 temples across the entire world. So those are like not the main headquarters, but like the headquarters to the main headquarters. Then they have the wards, which are like the church itself. Does that make sense? We'll speak about it later on in this video.
Only the best of feelings should exist in the circle. If any of you have unkind feelings toward any member of this circle, You are invited to withdraw, so that the Spirit of the Lord may be unrestrained. In the circle we make the signs of all the tokens of the holy priesthood. We will begin by making the sign of the first token of the Aaronic priesthood. This is done by bringing the right arm to the square, the palm of the hand to the front, the fingers close together, and the thumb extended. This is the sign. The name of this token is the new name received in the temple today. We will now make the sign of the second token of the Aaronic priesthood. This is done by bringing the right hand in front of you with the hand in cup and shape, the right arm forming a square, and the left arm being raised to the square. This is the sign. The name of this token is your first given name if you are going through the temple for your own endowment. Or if you are going through for the dead, it is the first given name of the person for whom you are officiating. We will now make the sign of the first token of the Melchizedek priesthood, or sign of the name. This is done by bringing the left hand in front of you, with the hand in cup and shape, the left arm forming a square. The right hand is also brought forward, the palm down, the fingers close together, with the thumb extended. This is the sign. The name of this token is the Son, meaning the Son of God. We will now make the sign of the second token of the Melchizedek priesthood, the patriarchal grave, or sure sign of the name. This is done by raising both hands high above the head, and while lowering the hands, repeating 3 times the words, O God, hear the words of my mouth. O God, hear the words of my mouth. O God, hear the words of my mouth. We have here a list of names of persons who are sick or otherwise afflicted, whom we are requested to remember in our prayer. We will place this list upon the altar and request the faith of those present in behalf of these persons. The sisters in the room will please veil their faces. Each brother in the circle will take the sister at his left by the right hand in the patriarchal grip. Each of you bring your left arm to the square and rest it upon the shoulder or arm of the person at your left. Those in the circle will repeat the words of the prayer.
Our Father in heaven, our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this opportunity.
We are grateful for this opportunity.
We have to surround this altar in the true order of prayer.
We have to surround this altar in the true order of prayer.
Researching this was very, very eye-opening, very surprising, very questioning. Like, I question a lot of things, and I'm like, is this real? Mormonism has a lot in common with mainstream Christianity, including a belief in Jesus Christ as the Savior and also the significance of the Bible. However, its unique doctrines and practices has often put it at odds with traditional Christianity denominations. For instance, they believe in modern prophets, additional scriptures, and different views on the nature of God and human potential that the Mormons believe in has sparked debate about whether Mormonism should be considered another form of Christianity. What do you guys think? Do you guys think they should be considered another form of Christianity? Let's talk about the controversial beliefs of the LDS Church. I feel like this is the longest subsection of this video. The most notorious controversy that surrounds the LDS Church is its historical practice of polygamy. So, polygamy was introduced by the founder Joseph Smith, and it was publicly announced by his successor Brigham Young. Hopefully, I think this person I've actually pronounced it well, because throughout yesterday I was trying to pronounce it Brigham Young. Hopefully that's the pronunciation. And this was introduced by Brigham Young in 1852. they refer to this as plural marriage. That's another thing that I said, that it was a word that was very, very new to me, that I had to go on Google and put plural marriage, and they're like, is another name for polygamy, which I'd never heard. Basically, in 1852, this was when plural marriage was introduced to the Mormon Church. This practice not only set Mormons apart from other religious groups, but it also led to significant persecutions and also legal challenges. Like, people did not understand the fact that this religion practiced plural marriage. It became a sense of ridicule by the public. Like, there were newsletters, there were books, there were articles written about them with different pictures of all the wives, like 50 wives on the bed, and the children are crying, and these wives are fighting against themselves, and the children are crying.
Brigham Young at home with all of his wives. All the wives fighting in bed while the babies cry. An elder's happy home. I mean, this stuff is kind of snarky and fun or whatever, but you also see some more violent and dehumanizing depictions. Like Uncle Sam marching with his sword into Utah, the Mormon vermin nest, or lines of women marching into a skull labeled Utah. The media starts portraying Mormons as a different race, less white than other Americans.
They had very interesting things to say about plural marriage, which I'm going to read to you guys now. According to Joseph Smith, he said, our system of marriage promotes life, purity, innocence, vitality, health, increase, and longevity, while monogamy engenders disease, disappointment, misery, and premature death. Like, being with one person for the rest of your life will make you die early, but being with multiple people for the rest of your life will give you long life. If you're in the dating scene, because me, when I'm in the dating scene, I don't talk to just one person, because talking to one person while you're dating the person, it's it can go left. So you're talking to this other person, ignoring the other person, and then if you guys end up together, or if you guys don't end up together, you have to start the process all over again. So I speak to so many people, not so many people, like maybe at most 5 people, just to see which one do I connect with. Again, dating does not mean you're having sex with them, you're even kissing them. Like, I have rejected like kisses on first dates because I'm still getting to know you. If you know what you want, like, you would date responsibly. Going with this is the fact that when it comes to dating alone, juggling 5 people can be a lot. You would think you've told this person one thing, but you've actually not. You've told it to the other person. So imagine being married, because, let me just say it, he got married to like more than 40 women. So how do you even remember? How do you even juggle? How do you even juggle for up to like 40 people? How do you juggle? Literally, when this one is complaining, the other one is complaining, this one is complaining. How do you live long after that? Don't get me wrong, I'm not against polygamy, because I know there are people that are doing polygamy, polyamory, and all those things. Like Neo has 2 girlfriends or 3 wives or whatever. I will tell you guys why I'm actually not fucking with this, honestly. The reason behind it was because Joseph Smith had claimed to have received a revelation from God commanding him to practice misogyny, which is now recorded as section 132 of the Doctrine and Covenants, and this is a sacred text of the Mormons. So he came and said, God commanded me to practice polygamy. And in this revelation, Joseph said that God justified polygamy by referencing biblical figures like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, and Solomon. Now, before I go on and continue into this Bible, don't forget, I am an evangelist. I've been an evangelist in my lifetime. Let me put on my evangelist hat. Let's start with, if we are using Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, and David and Solomon to justify polygamy as God coming to you and saying it. Let's start with Abraham. Abraham was married to Sarah. That was his first wife. He loved Sarah so much, but they had one problem. They could not give birth. Sarah was barren. She was known as a barren woman. And Abraham prayed to God so many times and was like, God, please give me a child. And God told him, I'm going to give you a child. Abraham lived till he was 100 years. He didn't see this child. And Sarah, she's 90 years and she has not gotten pregnant. And I'm sure, obviously, she's gone through menopause. She's not bleeding every month and she's lost hope. And she tells Abraham during this time while they're waiting for God, can you marry my maid, or can you impregnate my maid? Abraham refused. He's like, no, I don't want to. God said that we should wait. And she was like, people are laughing at me. People are ridiculing me. They're telling me, I don't have a child, they're referring to me as a barren woman who is going to take all your assets when you die, this, that. So due to the pressure, Abraham engages with Sarah's maid. When he impregnates Sarah's maid, that's when they got married. So that's how Ishmael was born, which was Isaac's stepbrother. So after that, Sarah finally gave birth to Isaac. So you can see that Abraham did not say, oh, let me go into polygamy. He was kind of persuaded by his wife Sarah to do it, according to the Bible. Now let's talk about Jacob. Jacob was on a journey or whatever, and he was on a farm and he saw this woman that he loved so much, and he told this woman, I like you. The woman was like, you have to come to my family and tell them that you want to marry me, that you like me. Jacob is like, okay, cool, I'm going to come to your family, I'm going to tell your family that I like you. So he goes to his family, he tells the family that he likes his family. His family is like, cool, you're going to work with us for 7 years to prove your love for my daughter. And he's like, okay, I'm going to work with you guys for 7 years. So he works with them for 7 years. He works on the farm, raises their cattle, does things, make sure that everybody's good. 7 years is like, see, it's time, it's 7 years. And they bring this person for him to marry. This person is covered in veil, they're dancing, the marriage ceremony is over. And he goes home to this person at night and he's about to do the do. And he finds out that this person is not his wife. And he goes to the family, was like, you guys have deceived me. This is not the person that I said I wanted to marry. And they're like, according to tradition, the last born or the younger person cannot get married before the first person. So we have to give you the first person to marry. So if you really, really want to marry this person, you have to work with us or work for us for another 7 years. And because Jacob really, really loved this person, he started to work for another 7 years just to get the hands of this person that he really, really loved. So then again, he was deceived into polygamy. About Moses, I can't really remember about Moses.
The story of Moses and polygamy is not as straightforward as it might seem. So while Moses is not typically associated with having multiple wives simultaneously, the Bible does mention 2 women in relation to his marital life. The first woman is Zipporah, who was a Midianite, and the second one is a Cushite woman who the Bible did not name. Zipporah, she was Moses' first wife, and he married Zipporah after he fled the land of Egypt. The Cushite woman is mentioned later in the Bible in the book of Numbers, chapter 12, verse 1. And when this woman is mentioned, the Bible also mentioned that his siblings criticized him for this marriage. This event has led to so many interpretations. The first interpretation is that Moses may have married the Cushite woman after his wife Zipporah had died. But the thing is, the death of Zipporah has never been mentioned in the Bible. The second one suggests that Zipporah and the Cushite woman might be the same person, but personally, I do not think that Zipporah and the Cushite woman are the same person. The third one is that the Cushite marriage was a political alliance from Moses' time in Egypt. It's also very important to note that the Bible does not provide extensive details about the personal life of Moses. Instead, the Bible focuses on his role as a leader and a prophet. And the mention of the Cushite wife just appeared when his siblings were complaining about his marriage to her, because according to them, God rebuked the marriage with the Cushite woman. So does that mean that God rebuked polygamy? Because if he got married to Zipporah and the Cushite woman, does it mean, or did it mean that God rebuked polygamy, or God just rebuked the fact that he got married to the Cushite woman?
Now let's go to David. David is someone that I don't understand how God still loved him after everything that he did. He was someone who was the man after God's heart. That's how God described David. But David, he was a good dancer. He loved God wholeheartedly. I mean, he wrote the book of Psalms. The book of Psalms is a very powerful book. Like, you could see how poetic this guy was. You could see his love for God. But he was a womanizer. His son Solomon took after him. He was a king of Israel. He wanted what he wanted, no excuse asked. He had women whenever he wanted women. He was walking on his balcony one day. He was just thinking, what can I do for this kingdom today? What can I do for the kingdom today? And then he looks down And he sees this woman showering. He's like, wow, he's mesmerized by what he's actually looking at, what he's saying. Calls his God, and he's like, who is that woman? We're like, oh, that's Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah. He's like, Uriah, who is Uriah? He's like, oh, he's a soldier. He fights in the battlefield. I was like, oh, he fights in the battlefield. Is he going to fight in the battlefield in the one that is happening? And the guy was like, yeah, he's going to fight in the current battlefield. So the day for the fight starts, and David gives word and was like, put Uriah at the forefront of the war. What happens when you're put at the forefront of the war? There is no way in hell you're going to come out. If you come out, it's a miracle. And Uriah is put at the forefront in the war. I'm sure he's wondering, like, why am I put at the forefront in the war? I'm just a little guy. I just have to go to Bathsheba, my wife. And literally, Bathsheba, she was pregnant at that time. Yes, she was pregnant. I think she was. Wait, give me a second. Okay, let me backtrack. So basically, before David killed Uriah, David had slept with Bathsheba. So when David had slept with Bathsheba, she discovered that she was pregnant, and she told David that she was pregnant. And David, to cover his sins, that's when he told the guard to take Uriah to the front of the wall. That was when Uriah was killed, and she gave birth to Solomon, Nathan, and 2 other children. So she had 4 children for David. David married her, and David, he loved women. He married so many people, like he did out of greed. Despite what David did, God still liked him. Like even God said, David is a man after my own heart. Now let's go to Solomon. Do we need to go to Solomon? Because how can somebody have 700 wives and 300 girlfriends? That is greed. How do you sleep with 700 people and 300 people? How do you sleep with 1,000 women? How do you sleep with 1,000 women? This aspect of using Abraham, Moses, Joseph, Solomon as a blueprint to practice polygamy is not something that they decided to just do off whims. It was based on condition, and it's condition that made them practice what they did, if that makes sense. It was not approved by God, if that makes sense. According to Joseph Smith, he suggested that plural marriage was just part of the restoration of all things. Remember when I told you guys to hold the thought where he said that all things were coming to restoration? So this was the restoration of all things. Let me explain for you guys. Basically, Joseph used the book of Acts as a reference. Book of Acts basically speaks about repenting, because during the end times things are going to be replenished, and literally ancient things will be renewed. So polygamy was the ancient thing that was about to get renewed in the 19th century during this time, and this was what the angel of God, and this is what God told him. Like literally, polygamy, according to Joseph Smith, was a do or die affair. Like you had to practice polygamy. I'm going to speak extensively on that. Essentially, the book of Acts calls for people to turn away from their wrongdoings and to return to God for forgiveness and renewal, promising that Jesus will come again when it's time for God to fulfill his promise to restore everything as foretold by the prophet. According to this belief, plural marriage was one of the things that God intended to restore in the later days. Joseph Smith taught his people that these commandments came directly from God, and he said that God presented it as a divine mandate rather than a personal choice or cultural tradition. The exact date of this revelation is debated. Church just suggests that it might have been as early as 1831 and wasn't formally recorded until July 12, 1843. And here Joseph claimed that an angel had appeared to him multiple times, commanding him to institute plural marriages, and the angel even threatened him with destruction if he did not comply to plural marriages. You know what's funny? The church, they abandoned polygamy in 1890, and this was due to the increasing pressure from the US government, which made polygamy illegal. And the US government, they threatened to seize church properties, and because of this, church leaders, including the president around that time, his name was President Wilford Woodruff, he stated that he received a message from God instructing them to end the practice for the sake of protecting the church and its members. One thing I noticed during my research is that if they want to abolish something, they will come and be like, we received a revelation from God. But that was the revelation from God, because the government were like, if you do not stop plural marriages, then we're going to seize your church, we're going to seize your properties. And one thing about the Mormons, they don't joke with their temple. They don't joke with the properties in their temple, which I'm going to expand more on because I see that as kind of a red flag, because there's just a lot that goes on within the temple that people do not know anything about. And the people, they just accepted. They literally just accepted. But let's not forget that Joseph Smith had come out to say that angel told him that if they do not practice polygamy or plural marriage, that they will face destruction. So if God really told you that, if God really, really wanted you to practice plural marriage, why didn't God change the heart of the US president that they should accept plural marriage? As simple as that. Instead, he was like, tell your people to stop it. Stop practicing plural marriage. Are you guys getting my drift? Another reason why the president came out and was like, you guys, please stop practicing this plural marriage was because they had moved so much, they were now in Utah. Them being in Utah was very, very necessary for the church acceptance into the American society, and also acceptance for them to be able to create a state for themselves. Just raises questions about whether God really, really did change his mind after declaring that plural marriage is a divine commandment. Like, if you don't practice plural marriage, I will put you with destruction. Interestingly, some fundamental offshoots, they have not stopped practicing polygamy. For example, the FLDS, they're about 30,000 now, and they have their own religion. They're staying in an offshore in Arizona. They're isolated. They practice polygamy and allegedly incest. Allegedly. So here they have like so many children. They're about 30,000 now. Polygamy is very illegal, so I don't know how they're able to do that and not get consequences for that. Another significant source of controversy has been about racial discrimination within the church. Till 1978, black men, they were banned from holding priesthood, and also black people were prohibited from practicing in temple ceremonies. This policy just stemmed from early Mormon teachings, especially those of Brigham Young. This linked black skin or people who were dark to divine disfavor. They believed that black people literally had the mark of Cain or the mark of Ham. So in case you don't know what the mark of Cain is, so obviously we know Adam and Eve, the first people that the Bible say came on earth, even though archaeologists and historians have come out to be like there were other people on earth because Adam and Eve were the first people on earth. Then there's a lot of questions that we really, really need to ask. Adam and Eve came to earth. Cain was not God's favorite, but Abel was God's favorite. One day, Cain killed Abel. And when Cain killed Abel, God was angry that Cain killed Abel, and God outcast Abel. So when God outcast Abel, he gave him a mark on his forehead so that wherever he went to, people would see him and people would know that he was cursed. Reportedly, some religious sources actually said that Eve had other children, but I don't think the Bible mentioned that. How did the rest of us come into this world? Have you thought about that? Is it through incest? Although some people said that they were fallen angels in nearby communities. So the mark that God had given Cain for killing his brother Abel, so that anywhere he went to, people would know that he was cursed. The Mormons believed that black people, beautiful people like me and other black people watching this, are cursed, the mark of Cain. Even though historically proven, which can also be debatable, the first type of people that came to the world are black people.
The Book of Mormon says a lot of strange stuff, like that Adam and Eve lived in Jackson County, Missouri.
Yes?
But school taught me that the first man and woman lived in Africa.
If, let's say, they believe that, or they believed then, according to them, that black people bore the mark of Cain, then women have the Eve gene, which can make them give birth to white people. So won't you say you came out from a cursed human being or a cursed person? So Brigham Young, he was not only a religious leader, he was also a politician, and he was a successor of Joseph Smith, and he's one that echoed most of the things that may have been said behind the scenes in the temple before Joseph Smith had died. We'll speak about Joseph Smith's death in a bit. Basically, the church, they came out in the later days and they reversed their ban on racial discrimination, and students come out and be like, we discovered it was a bad thing. They came out and was like, it's a divine revelation. God revealed to us that it was not fair on the black people, and what we did, banning them from our temple, was not fair on them. So he revealed to us to accept them wholeheartedly, which other people, they were like, okay, we'll accept them. But it also raises the questions as to what of the damage that you've done to other people? What of the damage that you've done to other Black people prior to now, over the years, before you're coming out to reverse this whole thing that you put out on them? People still ask those questions. 2013, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they took a significant step in addressing its racial history by publishing an official statement titled Race and Priesthood. This statement just acknowledged past policies that barred Black people from holding the priesthood and also prevented Black families from participating in temple ordinances. It explicitly rejected previous racist teachings that associated Black skin with divine punishments or premortal actions. The church condemned any notion of racial inferiority and also affirmed that current leaders equivocally condemn all racism, past and present. While many members welcome this acknowledgement as long overdue recognition of past injustice, critics, they argued that it didn't fully address the lingering issues that were related to racism within the church culture. For instance, let's not forget that there was an instance earlier this year, was it late last year, where there was a Black student in BYU. In case you don't know what BYU is, so it's a Mormon school that people go to. So there was a Black student in BYU that was asked to cut his locks. And in case you don't know, locks is a hairstyle that is deeply rooted in Black culture. And I'm not gonna lie, I view this as underlying racism, because if white people were to get locks or anything, I don't think they would tell them to cut their hair. Let's just be honest. And he went to cut and everything and he lost. And it's just so sad, because there is just so much to having locks. I myself, I have locks, and people get locks for different reasons. People get locks to be spiritually grounded. People get locks to have less things to do to their hair. People get lost for so many reasons. Even though they may, I'm not saying they don't, they may still have this in mind that Black people are cursed, because it's something that's been ingrained in you. You cannot just take that away. I think an article from 2013 is just going to come out and wipe what has been ingrained in people over these years. I just think they were trying to save face, honestly. Another stance that people have found controversial is the church's stance on LGBTQ plus issues, and this has become increasingly controversial, especially in recent years. And let me just play a devil's advocate here. Even Christian churches, it's just recently that Catholic Church has come to accept gay marriage. Catholic churches, even in Nigeria, don't accept gay marriage. This is a religious thing, not just LDS. Most religions, they don't work with LGBTQ plus people. So when it comes to the Mormon Church, they're very secretive. So non-members are not allowed to enter Mormon temples after they are dedicated. And the specifics of temple rituals are kept under wraps. The veil of secrecy has led to speculations and mistrust from outside the faith. This secrecy can be traced back to Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith is rumored, I don't even think he's a rumor. So during my research, I found out that he was part of Freemasonry, and this involves oath-bound ceremonies. Imagine the founder of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints being a Freemason person. Of course, there will be certain things that will be done at the temple that people outside would not even know. So a Masonic historian, his name is Alphonse Caesar, or his name was Alphonse Caesar, he noted in 1843 that there were 5 Mormon Masonic lodges in Nauvoo, and one of which were eventually suspended for irregular conduct. Influence of Freemasonry is very, very evident in the temple. Here in the temple, you will see Masonic symbols being displayed, and the people who have been initiated into this temple were initiated into the inner workings of the temple. They were often given undergarments that they were meant to wear for the rest of their lives, one. And secondly, they had secret handshakes that only them could practice on themselves, two. Thirdly, they were given names that no other person would know. So it will be just them that would know this name. Yo, please tell me this is not a cult-like activity. Please tell me this is not a cult-like activity. tell me that if someone came to you today, or you saw something like this in modern social media time or modern times, like hear something like this that happened in a true crime story, what would be the first thing you would say? You'd be like, that's a cult. Because what do you mean secret handshakes? What do you mean I'm giving you a name that nobody could tell? And what the hell is being discussed in that temple? What's being discussed in the temple? And because of this, Mormons, they are often reluctant to share details about temple details, which raises fundamental questions about the nature of their faith. Additionally, the church's lack of financial transparency has sparked concerns about how tithing funds are being used and the extent of its business holdings. And doctrinal issues are also things that have actually stirred controversy. Mormons, they don't pay tax. So obviously we don't know what happens with them financially, what they use their financial gain for. But then these people, they're also known for having so many volunteers. They have over 100,000 volunteers. And if you're a volunteer, you are a volunteer. So you will not get paid as much. Maybe you'll be given, shelter and money for food and basic necessities, but you will not be paid like a salary. So you guys should know, Mormon teachings regarding the nature of God and the potential of human deification are seen as heretical by many mainstream Christian denominations. That means like them believing that humans can turn into God is seen as heretical by so many other Christian denominations. And the belief that people can progress to become like God is a concept that the Mormons call eternal progression. Moreover, Mormons, they believe that Jesus is the brother of Lucifer. According to the Bible, Lucifer was an angel in heaven. He was not the brother of Jesus. And they also believe that after death, that everybody, they go to their own destinations. The Mormons believe that when you die, you go to 4 different places. The first place is the celestial kingdom. This is reserved for faithful Mormons. The second place is the terrestrial kingdom, and these are for those who have lived a very good life. The third place is the celestial kingdom, and this is known for the people who are unrighteous. And the fourth place is hell itself, which is known for people who are unrepentant sinners.
For those of you who were a little confused, you are dead, and this is hell. So abandon all hope and yada yada yada. We're now going to start the orientation process, which will last about...
Hey, wait a minute, I shouldn't be here. I was a totally strict and devout Protestant. I thought we went to heaven.
Yes, well, I'm afraid you were wrong.
I was a practicing Jehovah's Witness.
You picked the wrong religion as well.
Well, who was right? Who gets into heaven?
I'm afraid it was the Mormons. Yes, the Mormons were the correct answer.
So Mormons, they also practice baptism on behalf of the dead. Also in this temple, they practice celestial marriages. I'm confused, like why do they really practice baptism on behalf of the dead? Is it to initiate them into the kingdom or into their church even after a person has died? That's what I want to know. Can someone please answer that question? And the way they speak about their marriages, I'm not even seeing it any longer as a normal marriage. I'm seeing it as something that's occult-like. So much secrecy that is being held in their temples that are off limits to the public.
This is the dress I wore on my Mormon wedding day. Even though it is very modest, I was still asked to change out of this dress for my actual temple ceremony. They held a piece of computer paper up against the dress and said because it wasn't white enough, I wouldn't be permitted to get married in my dream dress for my own wedding. Growing up, I cannot tell you how much I heard about my wedding and how it would be the happiest and most important day of my life. However, on the day of my actual real wedding, it ended up feeling like it was the temple and Mormonism that were important, not me as an individual. I have so many photos of me wearing this dress on my wedding day, but let me show you my real wedding dress that I got married in. This is my wedding dress, and over top this more appropriate dress, I wore the robes of the priesthood, which are part of the Mormon endowment ceremony. I have no photos of my mom getting me dressed for my wedding because there are no cameras permitted in the temple. And even if there were cameras, there would have been 3 or 4 other brides in the picture who were all getting ready in the same room as me at the same time. And because there are no cameras allowed within the temple, I have no photos of my real wedding ceremony. My elderly grandma drove hours and hours to be able to attend my wedding and still was made to sit in the parking lot because she's not considered worthy to enter the temple. 2 of my 3 sisters were also not permitted to come to this ceremony. Looking back now, I realize that what should have been one of the happiest days of my life was about Mormonism. It was not about me.
Moments I missed out on because I was married in a Mormon temple. We weren't allowed to write or say personalized vows. My grandparents and most of my siblings weren't allowed to witness the ceremony. We didn't get any say in the wording of our ceremony, and in fact, the Mormon temple wedding ceremony doesn't even use the word love anywhere in the ceremony. I didn't get to walk down the aisle to my husband. We knelt at an altar, like some sort of biblical sacrifice. We don't have any pictures or video of our ceremony, including our first kiss as husband and wife. I wasn't allowed to look at my husband during the ceremony. That's not everybody's experience, but I was specifically told by the individual marrying us that we were not to look at each other the entire time we were getting married.
Now, during the ceremony, go ahead and look at me, okay? I'm not excusing it. It's only going to be less than 3 minutes here, so if you're not sure, just look over my eye. I think you're looking at me.
And lastly, I didn't even get to wear the wedding dress I picked out to get married in. I wore this exact outfit is what I wore to marry my husband. And these are moments I will never get back.
The church is largely male-oriented, and male members are expected to be initiated into 2 priesthoods. So these 2 priesthoods are called Aaronic or Melchizedek. Joseph Smith and his associate Oliver Cowdery, who actually left after 2 people they came, and they claim that John the Baptist actually appeared to them at the banks of a river called Susquehanna. I don't know if it's Susquehanna, but I was like, is that Susquehanna? I tried, there's no pronunciation for it, but it's called Susquehanna River. And they were also visited by Jesus' disciples, Peter, James, and John. If you and your associates were really baptized or whatever, why did he then decide to leave the church? Why? Because personally, if I experienced something like that, I would hold on to it. I wouldn't want to leave the church. And the church's approach to its own history has sparked so much controversy. So obviously, people have come, they've questioned all these things that they keep saying, all these things that they believe they've seen. And historians and archaeological people, they're like, see, there is no proof of all these things you're saying. And because of this, it has created tensions between the church and historians. This just strives to present a more nuanced and complete picture of Mormon history because, again, there are no proof to anything or most of the things that they've come out to say. And some parts of the Mormon book is verbatim to what is in the King James Version. The treatment of dissenting voices within the church has also drawn criticism because members who openly discuss controversial aspects of the church's history or teachings may face disciplinary actions or even excommunication. And this method of managing internal criticism is viewed by some as contrary to the principles of free inquiry and open dialogue. Additionally, practices such as proxy baptism for the dead face intense backlash, particularly because they involve the Holocaust victims without the family's consent. For male members who have reached the highest level of faith, there is a belief in eternal celestial relationships. And to achieve this status, Mormons, they must adhere to strict social guidelines, like they cannot consume alcohol, tobacco, coffee, tea. Not only that, they must not marry from outside of their church. Also, they must not engage in premarital sex. Interestingly, some Mormons, they found creative ways to navigate these theological restrictions. Practices like soaking and ATMing. Soaking is described humorously as inserting a pin into a vajayjay without any thrusting. Some people believe that this makes you feel less than a sin. Why are you punishing yourself? On the other hand, ATMing, it was popularized by a streamer called Cutie Cinderella. It involves a man sliding his pin along a woman's butt crack until he reaches climax. So what of the woman? What of the woman? How does she reach her own climax? Why does everything have to be about the man?
such as soaking and ATMing. Soaking, defined by the Urban Dictionary,
it's when you stick your penis inside of the vagina, but you don't move it, you don't thrust or anything, and it kind of like, it's not really a sin, it's not premarital.
While ATMing, on the other hand, by popular streamer Cutie Cinderella.
ATMing is when, doesn't count as sex, you, as a woman, your pants are down, and the guy takes his dick and he slides it up and down your butt crack until he comes.
Like a credit card?
ATM. And we call it ATM.
Anyways, Joseph Smith understood that maintaining Mormonism required creating a cultural bubble, and this is what we also know as an echo chamber. He created this echo chamber where deviating from the truth had serious consequences, and the early church, they faced significant divisions, and many leaders, they left voluntarily or they were excommunicated, including Oliver Chowdhury, the guy who John the Baptist appeared to with Joseph Smith. Today, Mormonism consists of three main sections. That's the LDS Church, the Mormon Fundamentalism, and the Liberal Reformist. You might recognize the LDS Church from its well-known door-to-door missionaries, just like Jehovah's Witness, while Fundamentalist Mormons are those that are associated with polygamy, and this was a practice that was introduced by Joseph Smith. Mormonism, they draw some things from the Abrahamic religion, just like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. So while Mormons identify as Christians, they still hold several beliefs that conflict with mainstream Christianity. For example, they reject the Nicene Creed. Nicene Creed is a fundamental statement for Christians, and they refer to Trinity as the Godhead. They also use different names for Jesus and God. So they call Jesus Jehovah, just like Jehovah's Witness, and they call God Elohim. And some Christians actually call God Jehovah and Elohim. So Mormons believe that God was once a man on another planet who was born to unknown divine parents before achieving godhood. Now let's talk a little bit, let's expand more on the whole garment thing. So I spoke about how the Mormon Church are very, very sacred with their dealings in the temple, and this is because the temple holds eternal significance, and in the temple, this is where they practice things like marriages and baptism, and they have ceremonies. So this endowment ceremony consists of two parts. So the first part is where you receive a new name, you have special garments that are worn the day you die, literally throughout your lifetime. And these garments, they extend down to the mid-thigh. The second part is the endowment ceremony, and this is called the second anointing. And this is where men and women are exalted to be kings, queens, priests, or priestesses in the afterlife. Mormons, they're generally discouraged from discussing temple practices with other people outside, even with other Mormons.
You're supposed to wear garments, and garments are special blessed underwear that would go to about here? No, here, about here. About here in length, that you wear under your clothes at all time, and about here in this neckline.
Bodysuit. The second part of the ordinance is known as the second anointing, where men and women are exalted to kings, queens, priests, or priestesses in the afterlife. These ordinances are supposedly sworn. Mormons are forbidden to discuss temple matters outside the temple. According to the Associated Press in Salt Lake City, some posthumous baptisms have been blocked for certain people such as the Las Vegas gunman, Stephen Paddock, and Charles Manson.
So let's talk a little bit about Zion. As a Christian, I heard about Zion, like Mount Zion is even a church, but I did not know that it was a real big thing in the Mormon Church. This was a vision that came to Joseph Smith, and this was where during the end times, this is where the Mormons were going to stay. This vision just involves everybody just living in harmony by following the teachings of the Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith, he sought to realize this vision by establishing prosperous communities in Ohio, Missouri, and Illinois that would serve as safe havens for his followers against government persecution. These towns, they were seen as potential zones, how often remaining under the radar regarding how much they were acquiring. So Joseph Smith had a whole map as to the streets. There was Bethlehem Street. The streets were streams that were in the Bible, and obviously they moved from town to town because they wanted to build this Zion. They had to get permission from government. And every time they got permission from government, the government was like, no. Until they went to New Mexico. When they went to Mexico, they kind of took over a land. They chased people from that land, allegedly. And when they chased people from the land, they started to build their own type of Zion. And the US authority, they saw this and they were like, we're quite impressed that you were able to chase people away. And the Mormons are like, you see, please don't chase us away from this. Instead, let us create our own state. And the US government are like, no. But instead, what we can do, we can just give you a portion of land for you to do your own, but you're not creating your own state. And this state was meant to be called Deseret. This was when it was now called Utah. This is where Utah is now, or wherever.
This begins the long journey of the Mormons moving west. Joseph and his followers set out. He's now talking to God directly all of the time, and he says that the Lord is telling him to go to Ohio to await instructions for their actual final destination, the place that they're actually going to set up their new city, their millennial kingdom, this communal utopian society that would be the base for preparing the world for the second coming of Jesus. They would call it Zion. And this is the most important part of the entire story, Zion. If you want to understand Joseph Smith, and if you want to understand the rest of the Latter-day Saints movement, including modern Mormonism, you have to understand Zion. Joseph says that the Lord is telling him that he will give him the exact location of Zion. And he tells him that it will be, quote, on the borders by the Lamanites. Remember that the Lamanites are the American Indians. And so this actually works perfectly because at this time, the US government is ethnically cleansing North America and pushing first Americans west. So there's a lot of territory where white settlers are butting up against Native Americans. Zion's going to be somewhere around here. So Joseph and his followers are now in Ohio, and they are growing. People love this story. And the concept of Zion transitions from this sort of vague, idealistic idea to a very solid plan, a new society called the New Jerusalem from the prophecies of old. And it literally became a plan. Like, he actually starts to sketch it on paper.
Joseph Smith was arrested and then he was tried for treason, but then he escaped before standing trial with the help of sympathetic guards. At this point in history, Joseph Smith, he had cultivated a very unique authority within Mormon Church, and this led him to just pursue relationships with so many women, including proposing marriages to some of his closest associate's wife. Because of this, he actually faced mounting pressures from opposition groups. People also were seeking political power of the Latter-day Saint community. In 1844, he started to apply for president. First of all, he ordered burning down of Naval Expositor printing press because he found out that ex-Mormons, they began spreading critical information about him. So obviously the government found out and then they were looking for him, but shortly after he turned himself into the police station because he was hoping that he would reconcile with the enemies. But on June 27, 1844, Joseph Smith, he was attacked and killed by an angry mob while he was awaiting trial in Illinois jail. And this tragic event just made him the first presidential candidate in US history to be assassinated. This mob, they came into his cell and he was trying to escape by jumping through a window, but he was shot so many times and allegedly his last words were, "Oh Lord my God," and that's how he died. And when he died, he became a martyr and many people were inspired by him, and people were like, he's a man inspired by God who dedicated his life to establishing Zion for his people. Brigham Young took after him and he succeeded Smith, and this when he became the president of the Mormon Church, and he shared many of his beliefs. He had 56 children with 55 wives. Over time, the controversies surrounding the Mormon Church grew. Like many religious organizations, new leaders often use their power to further political and economic agenda under the guise of faith. Behind many great religions lies significant financial gain. One way the Mormon Church generates income is through tithing, which I said earlier on in this video. And this requires members to contribute 10% of their annual income to the church. This practice is framed as double blessing, and it supports the spread of Jesus Christ's teaching, and it expresses gratitude to God rather than material possessions. There are numerous stories about people who struggle to afford basic necessity, yet they feel compelled to pay their tithing. A whistleblower in Ensign Peak Advisors, which is a financial institution that is linked to the Mormon Church, they revealed that the church had amassed over $100 billion in assets, and this figure was disclosed through one account. And shockingly, the whistleblower actually claimed that all these funds were not used for charitable purposes, but rather they were profit-driven ventures. Financial strategies of the church are just a tip of the iceberg, because these people, they recognize how essential and how crucial real estate is, that they actively acquire large tracts of land across the United States. Our final point: is Mormonism a cult? In my own unprofessional opinion, yes, Mormonism is a cult to me. Let me explain why. One reason people label Mormonism as a cult is because of its strict hierarchy and the level of control that it has over its members' lives. Critics and people that think like me, they've come out to argue that the church employs manipulative tactics, including rigid rules, discouragement of dissent, and emotional pressure. For instance, members are expected to adhere to specific guidelines regarding their dress, grooming, diet, and lifestyle. Those who do not conform may face disciplinary actions or social exclusion. Another aspect that contributes to this perception is the church's emphasis on obedience to its leaders. Members are often discouraged from questioning church teachings or the authorities of leadership, which can foster an environment where critical thinking is not encouraged. They just go with the flow and do whatever they are being told to do. Today you think that black people are bad luck, tomorrow you're like they're not bad luck. That does not really make sense to me. And this demand for unwavering loyalty can lead some people to just view the church as cult-like. The church's history of secrecy surrounding its rituals and teaching also adds to this perception. The LDS Church has been criticized for its lack of transparency regarding temple ceremonies and other sacred practices, which can breed suspicions among outsiders. The intense devotion many members feel towards their leader, it just complicates how the church is being perceived. Members often exhibit deep loyalty to church leaders, particularly the current president, who is regarded as a prophet. This kind of loyalty is reminiscent of what we typically see in cults. And that being said, that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for staying to the end. I really do appreciate you. And that being said, if you're here to the end, please leave a red emoji. See you next time. Bye.
Dum 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 dum.